Hey, horror fans, welcome back to Jay vs. Horror and another episode of Jay's Favorite Films. Now, originally today I was going to talk about Silverado, but I had a few people who suggested to me not to go that way with this channel because the overall theme is horror and dark films, thrillers, stuff like that. So I decided maybe they were right, and if we decide to do those films later on, we'll open another channel and we'll do films like Silverado and Back to the Future and stuff like that. But today, we're going to be talking about another one of my favorite horror films. And it's called Red, White, and Blue from 2010. It's directed by Simon Rumley, who, guys, if you haven't heard of Simon Rumley, go check out some of his films. Red, White, and Blue, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. Also, another film he made called The Living and the Dead is also a masterpiece in a whole different subgenre. So let's talk about the plot of Red, White, and Blue a little bit. And this is one, guys, that I hope you'll go out there and try to find it and watch it and view it for yourself. It's a really good movie. So first we have Erica, who's played by Amanda Fuller, and she portrayed Kristen Baxter on Fox's Last Man Standing, a sitcom that ran for many years. I think it still runs. So it's a very big departure for her in this. It's nothing like comedy or anything like that. So we see Erica. She spends her nights going between bars and beds in Austin, Texas. She's emotionally withdrawn. Her only form of human contact is a series of one-night stands. She eschews condoms and never has sex with the same man twice. This pattern of behavior is introduced to us via a big initial sequence that leads to a night of group sex with a bunch of young men. Three of them, I believe. It's a band, so she has like a four-way with this band. And from there we follow Erica a little more. We see that she lives in a flop house where she does the cleaning in exchange for room and board. This arrangement with the landlady is discontinued when a new boarder shows up. His name is Nate, and he's played by Noah Taylor. And Noah Taylor has also been in a lot of stuff. Stuff like Game of Thrones, Peaky Blinders. Great actor here. And so after Noah shows up, Erica finds herself in urgent need of a regular income to pay for her stay. And feeling responsible for all this, Nate, played by Noah Taylor, helps her land a job in the do-it-yourself store where he works. Kind of like a Lowe's or a Home Depot. So she's a little distrustful and reluctant when it comes to Nate because he just has a bad vibe in her opinion. But she does take the job, and here we see that she's not changed much at all. She's sleeping with the different managers in the store. Like, they'll send her to one department, and then that guy will send her to another department. And it's kind of gross. I mean, she's sleeping with all these different guys in the store, and they're just using her. So when Nate sees what's going on here, he trips out on the guys and blows up on them. And then, we see Erica is like, why do you care about me so much? Why do you care about me? Why do you think I should accept your affection? Because she can already she's had a hard life, and she can smell a psycho from a mile away. So she kind of feels like she knows there is something wrong with Nate. And so then Nate tells her this anecdote, which is one of my favorite stories that I've seen a character tell in a horror movie. I mean, I would put it up there with the story that, or the two stories actually, that Mark Duplass does in Creep and Creep 2. It's just a really good story. He talks about how when he was a child, he had a pet that he really loved, and so he didn't kill that pet, but there were several other animals that he did kill. And what he's trying to get across to her is that when someone like this feels affection for someone, they won't hurt them. They'll be protective of them. And it's an interesting thought because we have seen some serial killers out there, psychopaths like BTK, who had a family, and of course Bundy, who had several relationships with women who didn't know he was a killer, didn't have any idea about that. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's normal, but it is an interesting look into the brain of someone who thinks like this. And so from here, Erica kind of reluctantly builds this bond with Nate, and you can see later on that they go to birthday parties together, and everything seems very good. It seems very nice. It's a small life, but it seems very nice for someone who's been through so much. You can tell that she's at the end of her rope when the movie starts, that she just has nowhere else to go and doesn't care anymore. So it's nice to see that little ray of sunshine in someone's life. But then the film segues to the guys that that Erica almost said Regina that Erica was having group sex with in the beginning of this movie. And the lead guy here is Frankie Morrison, and he's played by Mark Center, who is one of my favorite young actors of this era. He's also in a film I'm going to talk about later called The Lost, that was based on a Jack Ketchum book. But in this film, he plays a young, hot-headed wannabe rock star who is caring for his ailing mother who has cancer. Frankie and his band, the guys who we saw in the group sex scene, they secure a budget for a European tour. His mother's cancer appears to be in remission, and he reconnects with a former girlfriend that he kind of shunned off before. And everything seems to be going great for him, you know. But all of his happiness is cut short instantaneously when we find out that he's been diagnosed as HIV positive after a routine check. This comes about because he's been donating blood to his mother for months, and now this time when he tried to do it, they screened the blood and it came back that he was HIV positive. So of course you could tell that he's distraught by this news, and he tries to do some stuff here. I really can't stand this guy, this character, not the actor. I mean, he's really like one of those mama's boys who is not a man at all. Like, in a straight-up fight, he would cower down and run off or cry like a bitch. But in this world, he gets, to rage and be an asshole. Because people like this will only surround themselves with people who will bow to them. They'll never have anybody in their clubhouse who's not a club member, if you know what I'm talking about. They won't have friends that are true friends that tell them when they're fucking up. They don't need people like that. They only need people who are willing to worship at their altar. So we see here that Frankie goes off, and this is one of the things that really makes me hate this guy in this movie. He goes back to the old girlfriend that he had, and his intention here is to have sex with her, to give her HIV, and then later on act like he didn't know he had it when he gave it to her. And this goes on for a little bit here, this scene, but then we, because he's a wuss. He breaks down and starts crying, tells her the whole thing, which I guess is the right thing to do, but, you're either going to be a bad guy or you're going to be a good guy. That's my look at life. Either be a bad guy or be a good guy. If you want to be in the middle, then get the fuck out of the way. And so he gives it up that he's, trying to do this, and she throws his ass out. Who wouldn't? And from here, the only thing that Frankie can think of doing is finding Erica, because she's the only woman that he's had sex with in the last 6 months that he didn't use protection with. So he instantly believes it's her. So he goes to his bandmates and asks them to help, and they all go take the HIV test and come back negative. So it's only him that was infected. But they decide to help him out of their loyalty to him. So the three of these guys, along with another guy named Ed, who is kind of a good guy in the movie up until this point. He kind of tries to tell Frankie that he's out of control a couple times and things like that. But Ed works with Frankie, and he gets wound up in this as his buddy. And he didn't have anything to do with the orgy or anything with Erica, but he agrees to help him find her. So they go from bar to bar, and we see a lot of these scenes where they're going in and out of the bar, and they're like, nope, not here, nope, not here. And then we see a scene where Nate and Erica are dining. It looks like a bar, restaurant type place. And Nate goes off to the bathroom. When he comes back, he realizes Erica's gone. Like, her purse is gone, everything's gone. And so he's not stupid. He realizes something's up instantly. But what we see is, we don't see a scene where the guys force her out of the bar, which I think is smart, because that would be kind of hard to buy into. It's more believable when you just imagine it, right? And so we skip from here, and we see that they are taking her back to Frankie's house. And from here, Frankie, they take her upstairs. They've got her tied up. And, Frankie starts to try to like talk to her and be her friend and stuff, but then he hears uh, Erica just say, "Look, like I knew what I was doing all along." Basically, that's what she says here. Uh, but this is probably the first time she's really been faced with the consequences of what she's done, and she tries to justify her actions by telling him about the fact that she was raped as a child by her mother's boyfriend, which you can, if you watch this character for 30 seconds, you know that's true. And she was raped by her mother's boyfriend as a child, and she reveals that she contracted the disease then, and she slept with at least 130 men since then. And, he feels like it's the end of the world, and she tries to tell him that, it's something I've lived with for years. It's not something you can't live with. It's not a death sentence like it was in the 80s. But what she doesn't know is that he's contracted this virus and given it to his mother, who is suffering from cancer. And so Frankie pulls some more dumbass shit here that really makes me hate this guy. He tries to rationalize the situation. Says, "Oh, well, you should just be my girlfriend. Since we both have HIV and we can take care of each other, and since we both have it, it won't matter. We won't be hurting anyone." And she is just like sickened by this. There's been a change in Erica since she's met Nate, and you can see that she wants to try to change her life, but this situation has risen up, and so what is she gonna do here? You know what I mean? She wants to be different, so she resists, and so Frankie rapes her. And the way he does it almost tries to make it seem like he didn't rape her. Like, we've had sex before and we're starting this new adventure together. And it's just fucking disgusting. This dude is delusional. He's a narcissist of the worst kind. He's a wuss. I mean, a coward, a punk, whatever you want to call him. You know these guys. You see them all the time, right? These are the same guys who their mothers changed their diapers a little too long, breastfed them a little too long. And so now they yell at their girlfriend when there's not a glass of milk before they go to bed or something. You know what I mean? It's just the most, the weakest type of man in the world who wants to portray that he's the biggest type of man. So that's what Frankie does here. He rapes her and tries to make it feel like it's okay that he didn't really rape her. He's just trying to get her adjusted to what life is going to be like with him, I guess. I don't know. But from here, he, ties her up and gags her. The buddies have taken off before this because he talked them into believing he wasn't going to do anything. "Oh, I'm cool, man. I'm cool." So they all leave. Now, it's a couple days after this. Erica's been tied up and bound for a couple days. And this is where we see that Frankie's mother has found out that she has tested positive for HIV as well. And so she can't deal with this. The HIV and the cancer and everything, it's just too much. She takes a handful of pills and she kills herself. She leaves a note for Frankie. This is kind of a hard part. I mean, it's hard to feel sorry for this guy at any stage of this film, but it is a little bit here where you kind of want to feel sorry for him. It's just he makes it very hard. But yeah, she takes an overdose of pills, and Frankie finds her body and then reads the note that she's left him, and he goes into a fit of rage. I mean, this might be the only time that it's justified for this guy, but he goes into a fit of rage and he goes upstairs and he stabs Erica like 3 or 4 times. And then he freaks out like any good wuss would do. He's not a cold-blooded killer. He's just, I'm frustrated. I didn't get what I want. Those type motherfuckers. So he calls up his buddies and he's like, "Oh, I made a big mistake. I fucked up, guys." And so because they're a bunch of submissive guys who want to follow somebody like this, they show up and, "Oh, we'll help you, man." And so they try to take her to the hospital, which I will at least give them some respect for that, the fact that they tried to take her to the hospital. But once they get her in the car, it's very obvious that she's already dead. It's taken too long for everyone to show up and come up with this plan, and she's bled out. But one more time, out of loyalty to Frankie, they all decide to take on this secret, and they're going to separate the parts of the body and they're going to each take a part of the body and dispose of it. That way they're all implicated in the crime if it ever comes back. Nobody can go tell on anybody. But what they don't know is that Nate has been looking for Erica this whole time. And early in the film we hear Nate talk about how he, left the army with an honorable discharge, and he's telling about how he's been offered a job by the CIA, and it kind of seems like it might be just like inflated bullshit. Maybe he's seeing this all in his mind, but it's not real. This is his vision of himself, of what he is. But it comes out that it's very real, because as soon as she goes missing, she's missing for a couple days, Nate finds a little clue that leads him to one of the guys. And so he calls his contact at the CIA who's been offering him this job and has this guy help him track them down, all four of them. And so this is where the movie takes a very hard left turn, and it goes into a darkness unlike most movies I've ever seen. From this point, we find out just how much of a psychopath Nate really is. And he doesn't care about anyone other than someone he's already decided in his mind that he cares about. So first he goes to the house of Ed, who has a family. He has a wife and a daughter, and he sadistically tortures the hell out of these people. I don't want to even tell you about the scene, because it's so impactful that it has to be seen. I think especially this scene. There's some stuff here that goes on where you think, you start to like Nate in this movie. And then when we get to this point, we realize that he is not the person he presents himself to be. Maybe he is the person he presents himself to be, which is even more scary, right? And so there's some scenes of sadistic torture and stuff like that here that you really have to see it. It's not so hardcore as far as gory, guys. It's just the implication and the thought of what's happening that really takes your mind to that place, and you're like, wow, I did not see this turn coming. What we find out is that Nate is very skilled at his job, and that he was an ex-army interrogator. That's what he did in Iraq. And he was very good at his job because he could torture people relentlessly with no emotion. And so that's what we see here. And then we see that Nate goes through each of the guys, each of them get a segment here. And we reach the end where he meets up with Frankie, and I don't want to give that away as far as how it goes. I'm sure you can imagine how it goes. But from here we get a great ending to the movie too. Guys, please, if you watch the film, pay attention to the ending. The final couple scenes are like a gut punch that you never see coming. I mean, I don't know if you know or not, but it's a possibility. But when you see it actually happen at the end of this film, when you see what's driven Nate to this point, then you understand a little bit. I'm not going to say you understand all of it. This guy's a psychopath. You can't understand. Can you imagine someone hurting someone you love and then going on a revenge quest? Yes, of course, all of us can imagine that. Now imagine that times 1,000 being a psychopath. A psychopath doesn't care, right? So, yeah, great movie, guys. Please check it out if you haven't seen it yet. I'm giving it a solid 8.5. No, let's just stop right there. 8.5. Let's give it a 9. Let's give it a 9 out of 10, guys. I'm going to put it up there with Martyrs and stuff like that because I love it so much. It's such a great, impactful movie and such a good look at the underbelly of American life and what American life is for so many people, even though we don't want to admit that. This is what it is. It doesn't always turn out this way, of course, but this is how it is for some people and how it could turn out, of course. So yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 9. I'm put it up there with some of my favorite movies of all time, and you're never going to hear me give anything a 10. So 9 is pretty prestigious for me. And yeah, guys, it's one of my favorite movies. Simon Rumley is great. I think he got a little over-Americanized. One of his movies that he made, or the last one that I remember watching, was called Johnny Frank Garrett's Last Words. And it was based on a true story to an extent. It's a supernatural horror film. But it is based on a man who was really executed, and then all these weird events that happened after he was executed to the people who framed him. And he was framed. So it's an interesting movie, but it didn't it had Sean Patrick Flannery in it. And I think the movies that he made with lower budgets came out way better because nobody expected as much from them, right? So, yeah, check out Red, White, and Blue. It's a great film. I love it, love it, love it. Watch it at least a couple times every year, guys. And that's all we've got for today, guys. Now, our next Jay's favorite film, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. I'm going to let you guys pick which one I talk about next, okay? So, my next film I'm going to talk about in Jay's favorite films is either going to be Nightbreed or it's going to be Nightmare on Elm Street. One of those two. You guys choose. Leave it in the comment section. Whichever one gets the most comments, that's the one I'm going to talk about next. And guys, we will talk to you. Go ahead and finish it for me because I know you guys know what I'm about to say. The next time we got something worth talking about. See you then, guys. Bye.